Starting. So good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome back to Wolf Creek Public Schools, Mr. Curtis Hewson of Jigsaw Learning.
Hi there, everyone.
Curtis will be leading us through our second Hangout on Air training opportunity for 2015, and will be working with us as we build our understanding of how the collaborative response model software works to support our CRM conversations about students. So this Hangout on Air is being archived so that our audience can go back and review the information at a later date and time, but also be able to share the link with colleagues who may not have been able to make it today. So we'll stop from time to time to field any questions which may come in from our audience. If you're watching this Hangout from the Google Plus event page, you might want to click on the option to join our live audience. This will allow you to ask questions in a chat window or through your webcam. If you do join in, just remember to mute your microphone when you aren't speaking to avoid audio feedback. If you'd rather send in a question to us via email, send them to technology@wolfcreek.ab.ca, and I'll monitor this mailbox throughout the Hangout and watch for your CRM questions. So without further ado, let's turn our Hangout over to Curtis.
Great, thank you so much, Greg. All right, welcome to everyone once again. This is our second webinar happening here in a series this fall as we continue to provide supports for schools and districts in the utilization of the software. So without further ado, we're going to jump right in. I'll be sharing my screen here with our collaborative response model system, or the CRMS, that you can see here in front of you. So last week we talked through some basics in relation to the software and just some basic premises. This week we're going to dive a little bit deeper into the items of team board, team meetings, actions overview, and interventions. All right, so when I am traveling to a demo space that I've created that we'll log into. And once again, similar to last week, you're going to see that we've entered a school. This school is called CRMS Demo. As an administrator, as a school administrator, you can see that I have these 4 buttons that allow me to engage in some determination and customization options of configurations within the school, the ability to monitor staff use permissions or user permissions, students, a number of options that we had shared last week. This week, I would like to draw attention to some of the bottom user options. So you can see as I come into the school, I'm immediately brought into the school homepage where I have access to a basic school overview, resources that may have been added to my school, web links that are useful for meeting the needs of students, and as an administrator, I have a 4th block where admin resources can be saved here as well. Again, providing that space should schools find that to be a valuable function within the software. One of the features that I would like to point out here today as well is our support network. You can see when I click on this that I've got access to the support network for the CRMS. Now, if I had a question for my district support, such as I'm missing 3 students within my school, my staff, I have things that are not showing up, those would be great questions for a district support. However, if it's in regards to how do I do certain things within the software, I can proceed to CRMS support. And you can see this brings us into a new website. This is our temporary website. We are building one that has the ability to host forums as well for people to ask questions and to provide responses, to engage in conversations. But you can see in our support network, not only do we have a knowledge base that has been established with different postings, videos that are starting to become populated, we also have webinar support that shows our upcoming webinars as well as past recorded webinars that we've been able to obtain from these webinars in partnership with Wolf Creek Public Schools. You'll also notice down the side that we have categories for different supports available in the system, and we will continue to add to these and different support topics that have been added. So this will become a rich resource as we continue building our system. So let's jump right in then, first to team boards. Last week we spent quite a bit of time with student profiles. Let's jump to team boards. The team board is a visual representation of the levels of support that are established for students. So you can see that within this school, we've established 4 tiers. We've customized that as a school. We've customized the colors. We've even customized what they are named. And now we've shown which students we'd like available on our boards. You'll note that there are colors that indicate entry levels for students. When they came into grade 8, what entry level were they currently at? And once again, that's consistent with a school's collaborative response model framework. And then you can also see the level of support that they're currently receiving through this pyramid of interventions. So I do want to go back and discuss how did we get to this building of a team board. So I can click my user dashboard out once again, and you'll notice there this user dashboard that we have is accessible at all times in the system. Let's go back to our team boards. And you can see that within this school, we have just one board established. We're going to go in and take a look at how this board, how this board is established. So we're going to edit. When I'm in here, you can see that I can change the name. I can change what the focus of the board is. Now within this school, they've determined that there's 2 intervention focuses that they've established, academic and behavior. This particular board is set with behavior. And again, as a school or district, we can customize that to add or reduce the focuses that we have. So right now you can see all of the students that I've elected to show on this board from my grade 8. However, I'm going to add 4 more students. So I've had 4 recent students come to our schools. So right now I'm using a command click or a control click. Right now you can see all of the students. I'm adding a control click or a command click to be able to select more than one at a time. And we're going to move these over into our selected students. And you can see they've been added. Darth, Luke, Han, and Leia have been added in. I can determine what card I'd like as well as the visualization that I'd like to choose. This is available for the users to determine which visualization works best. However, we have found that for schools with many students on a particular board, horizontal or vertical alignment typically work best. With fewer students, a pyramid or inverted pyramid can also be effective. So we're going to keep this at a vertical and save. So now one of the things for schools that had boards previously established, there's essentially 2 ways that we can go about changing these. So we could go into the board, edit a current board, and if these students last year were on our grade 8 board and now they have moved to grade 9, we could simply change the name and have it now as our grade 9 board and remove students who may not be part of our current roster. I'm going to make those changes back quickly. And you can see they've been added. Those 3 students have been added back to our available student list. Let's add them back into the board. That's one way, is to simply change the name of the board and continue. Or we could also go about, if we wanted to continue our grade 8 board, but now we look at our current grade 8s, we can move students out, off of the board, and back on. One of the unique features with the team board is that the creation or deletion of any board within the system does not actually impact the student, anything within the student profile. So if a student was listed at tier 4, or let's go into our board, if they were listed at tier 3 in regards to behavior with this board, if I was to eliminate this board and delete it as a school admin, we would still see the students at the same levels of support and the same entry levels as well. So those additions or updates for team boards need to be done at a school administration level for those updates, but using one of those two methods of whichever is easier. Because the boards are a visual representation and are changed from school to school, although our student information system syncing ensures that our students are updated, the placement on the boards is still a manual endeavor. So that shows what the team boards, how we go about establishing team boards and what those look like. You'll also note that we have the ability to print off that team board and to show students what levels they are currently at within the system as well in a report version. All right, that was one of the first topics that I wanted to attend to, and I'm going to pause in case there's any questions that come up, anything that comes from Greg. I do note one here from Nathan. Is search a specific student to add to a team board? So that question, when we go into our student profiles, and if let's go and search John. I can find, let's say I was looking for John Travolta. I bring up John. This will show me the team boards that John currently is on. So John right now in the school is only on one. Now, if I wanted to add John into that grade 8 team board, I would need to go into my team boards and once again edit to add a student in. Oops, sorry. Edit, and I would have to find John. Right now, John is on this board, but I would go and move him from my available students onto the selected students. Nathan, let me know if that answered the question there that you had for me. There's a question coming in from Jay as well. Am I correct that team boards can be cross-graded? Absolutely. So we can actually establish, and that's a great question, Jay, that I'll address in a few ways. We could actually, right now in this school, I've only added grade 8 students, but let's say, for instance, that I wanted to create a team board called Division 3. Where I was going to put in, and we'll make this an academic, and I was going to put in students from all Division 3 classrooms. Even though I have no students, if I was to click down in grade 7, I could pick which students came from there, add them on, grade 8. You can see all my grade 8 students there. And then also grade 9. One of the other things that so all of those students could come in, and yes, we can absolutely cross-grade that. One of the ways that we are starting to see schools utilizing the team boards as well is for things such as different reading groups, to be able to establish team boards to focus on specific small groups. We've also seen schools that have developed a intensive student board where any student that they've determined at a Tier 4 level of support, they'll actually create a team board called Tier 4 where they could put, even within Tier 4, their levels of support that they'd like to have in place for them at that. So it allows them to look at a particular cohort of student as well. There's no limit on the number of team boards, and also if I go back into a student profile, let's choose John, it's very possible that I could have John on, when I click the team boards that he is on, we could see John in multiple team boards. There is no limit to the number that he can appear on, where another student may have only a small number of boards that they're on. Okay, so a question. So is there a way to select a grade or a group of students when adding deleting students for a team board? Right now, that's one of the functions that we will be building in. As I've been building team boards here myself, it has been tedious to be able to go through, as we're seeing, and click one along, especially when we get into cohorts of 50 to 100, 150 students. One of the features that we are building and hope to have available soon is when clicking a group of students that there will be a select all function where we can select larger cohort groups. So now with another question is, with a large student population, how do I search for students to add to a board? Well, I can do it through this, which is more of a manual search. I can also, in my student profiles, go about my search. So let's take a look and see if we have a Drew. We do. And within Drew, we can see here, and I can go back to add. One of the features that we are looking as well to build upon is when we click to team board, not only can we select, but to have an additional button here that says add to, where it could be easily added to another, giving us multiple functions. So even though that is one of the things that we are intending to bring along, it's not available currently as we go into the system there, Jay. So, and Nathan's question, the entire grader group, I think I've attended to that one with, it's not there yet, but our intention is to have that select, deselect all function so that we can do this much quicker. The other function that our development team is working on is not only single click functionalities with a control click, but to be able to use a shift so that we could start with Michael, go all the way down with a shift click, similar to other program functionality, and highlight that entire list. However, right now it's on just a single click. Okay, seeing no other questions right at this moment, I then do want to take a look at the next functionality, and that is of collaborative team meetings. So when establishing your school and getting them ready for the first use of the system in student conversations, step number one is establishing the boards. We cannot engage in a team meeting until the boards are established. So right now we're going to take a look at adding a new team meeting, starting a new team meeting. You can also see that in this year, organized by the boards, there's one other meeting that has been established, but we're going to start a brand new one. So to do so, we select our team board. Right now we're using the only one we have. It brings us to our visual board, and you can see in the top right that we have a new team meeting started, and we're going to select our date of today. We're going to select all that are in attendance. So we're going to select not only our principal, 2 teachers, we also have a therapist, and we're going to add one other that we also have Curtis Hewson joining us. We're then, consistent with collaborative response model philosophies, we identify our celebrations. What are some great things happening for our students here? We can add in anything that, again, is consistent with our collaborative response model processes. So let's go along here and add in that Darth is dealing well with anger issues. The other notes box is intended that during any point in the meeting, if there's items that come up that don't necessarily relate to specific students but the larger cohort, we can use this box. So items such as, let's add in here that Joby will communicate, spell communicate right, communicate with team about activation of iPad cart. Okay, we can set in a next meeting date if we'd like, but as soon as we're ready to start talking about students, we're going to press save, and you'll note that now students have a little checkbox that's available. Anytime during this meeting, we can click back in to our meeting active to add further notes in either our celebrations, to add further in attendance, or to end our meeting. Right now, we do not wish to end our meeting. We're going to keep going, so we'll save and come back in. Now, at this point, we're going to start talking about students. And let's say, for instance, that within our collaborative response model process, we first review Tier 1 and say, you know what, at this point, Drew, Christy, John, Chevy, and Gary, things are going great. We're not worried about them. However, and you'll notice that with those, it put in add notes, but for us, we're not worried about adding notes for them right at this point. But Darth, let's start talking about Darth Vader. So we go to add notes. We have the opportunity, or you can see here first that it pulls us directly into Darth's student profile. We can see any strengths and interests that are being established. In fact, you know what? Let's even add in one of the strengths is he has a powerful personality. This will be valuable for for us, not only as we continue to work with Darth over the year, but for other teachers or teams in the future. We're just going to save that here for him and come back into our meeting. Okay, we have the ability that if we'd like to talk about other students with similar descriptions, similar things happen, we can. Any other students that are added will become, will have a record made within their individual student profile. But let's add in for Darth that there's some difficulty making new friends. Obviously, for the purpose of the demonstration, these are very simplistic descriptions coming in. We're going to add an intervention or action. A little later, hopefully today, we'll be able to show how we go about adding interventions into our school to build this menu. But for now, we're just going to add an other action. And let's set up a meeting with parents for Darth. And let's make his teacher Mary. And you can see identified there. Let's make her responsible for that. And by tomorrow, we want her to establish that. So we're going to save. Brings us back. We can see this has been clicked off. And for the purpose of this demonstration, we're not going to do any other students, as I'd like to just continue along. So at this point, we've decided that we're going to end our meeting. It'll ask if we'd like to. You bet we do. Do we wish to print? Yes, we'd like to see a print copy. You can see that it is open. The system has opened up another tab for us with a PDF that shows our basic meeting information, who was in attendance. You'll also note which students we're talking about, the description, who's responsible. You'll see here that there is a completion date for this action. It's not yet been completed. We're going to come back and show a feature here as well. So we're going to come back out of this. There is the opportunity to tweet out that we've met as a team. We're not going to take advantage of that. We'll go no thanks, and we can see within our collaborative team meetings that a new one has been added today. The icon here with it being grayed out means that that meeting is not active. It has been deactivated. We are finished it. So I want to quickly show then that I can go back to that print one more time to see that all the actions in place. But if I was to go and search out Darth, going through the student profiles, I can see under meeting records that there was a meeting that happened, a collaborative team meeting, in fact, on September 10th. If I click on this, it will show us just the actions for just Darth that were in place. If we had talked about 20 students within this meeting, the individual record would not indicate what other students were being discussed. That's one of the powerful pieces of the collaborative team meeting, is that we are able to talk about multiple students, add multiple notes to profiles without having to pull up all individual profiles to do that. So again, I'm going to pause one more time and take a look at some of the questions that have been generated and ask Greg to provide any others. Greg, while you're taking a look, I'd like to address the ones that have come up in the group chat. So our first one, and I'm just going to switch out of the sharing screen and come back to you live. So one of our questions that came in, the students are not sorted by last name, first name. Will that change? In the adding students in the team boards, absolutely. That's been one of the features that's been put in a number of other places. Actually, I'll go back to my screen. In a number of other places, you can note that, for instance, when I look at students, I am able to sort, to put those alphabetically. Even within the team boards themselves, they've been listed alphabetically by last name. However, we are noting areas where it would be beneficial for the students to be sorted by alphabetically, and that team board is one location. So yes, we will be addressing that in our adjustments that we're making over the next weeks here. So thank you for that question. Oh, great question, Jay. When you select what board you want to use, so if I go back to establishing a collaborative team meeting, and I click on a new team meeting, so let's imagine that this is one of our CRM days. We're ready to start off a grade 8 meeting. We click on new team meeting, and it'll ask us, which board are you wanting to discuss? In a school that had 20 boards established, we'd see 20 to select from in this list. But in our school, we don't. We only have grade 8 behavior. That's the only one. We continue, and it takes us right to our board.
So Curtis, at this time, I just wanted to pause for a second and remind anybody who may have joined us late that they could go back to the Google Plus event page and click on the button that says Join this Hangout to become a part of our live audience, much like our other members here, Jay, Nathan, and Phil. And that would give them the opportunity to ask the questions like our live members of the audience are doing. But also, if they don't want to do that, they can send me any questions through an email address at technology@wolfcreek.ab.ca.
Okay, and so one of the questions coming in, is there a select all feature? I had spoke to this one just a little bit ago. Right now, when we go to add, or we're going to actually edit, let me share my screen here. Now back up. So in the team board, if I was to add a new team board, in this case I'm just going to edit one. Currently there is not a select all. There is the ability to use a control click or a command click depending on whether you're working off a PC or a Mac. However, as discussed with one of our previous questions, we are working to build in, where you'll see there are no students on this side, that there would be a select all function that we could utilize. We're also working to build in a shift and click, so that if I clicked on Michael, went down to Gary and pressed shift and click, it would highlight that entire row for us to eliminate that single student addition. Again, one of the features that we are finding as we start to use the system, things that just make good sense. Okay, so another question, can any staff select any board, or can it be changed in preferences so that only certain staff? So this system has been established under the philosophy or the mentality that these are all of our students. So any user that logs in who has permissions within the school, whether that's an admin, a teacher, a staff member, or anyone else that has been established by school admin into the school, when they click on team boards, they're going to see all boards listed. They're also going to see all students on those boards. So we've definitely built this system with the understanding these are all our students. Now, one of the things that we have put in to establish is the ability within student profiles. If I was to click in, let's go back into John Candy here. Under student resources, if I click in a new student resource, I am able to make a resource confidential so that only certain individuals can see that. However, we also know that depending on your district, there's going to be different structures and processes in place for what documents should be made available within this system. So the answer to the question in regards to can staff select any board? Yes, they certainly can. However, our users at the staff level, so at the view only, can only view. They do not have the option to edit. They can also print. And school admin are the only individuals that are able to delete a team board. Okay, so another question coming here from Nathan. If a student is discussed in two different team meetings, i.e. classroom teacher and intervention team, are those meeting notes available to both teams? Yes, absolutely. So we can see here, let's say we had a collaborative team meeting. Darth was talked about like we just did, and it's created those notes for Darth. And let's go in. I'm going to just search for him to bring him up quick. There he is. So we can see that meeting records. Now, at any time, we can also initiate a new meeting. School admin and teacher user permissions have the ability to start a new meeting. You can see in the new meeting, it's similar to a collaborative team meeting. However, in this case, I have to select the date. So let's choose the same date. What kind of meeting is it? Now, in our defaults, we have just 3 basic in place. Within different districts, they're able to customize, and school can customize as well to change these to reflect the types of meetings happening. If you have an intervention team meeting or other types of meeting, they can be reflected. But for instance, let's just create a learning support team meeting with our principal and just the teacher involved. We can add a description. There's some bullying issues coming up for Darth. Again, the actions. Let's have our principal take on an action here. And involve Darth in peer mentoring program. And our completion date that they're going to do that tomorrow. We go to save this. And now you can see in our meeting records that in 2015 we had a collaborative team meeting and a learning support team meeting. They both happened on the same date, but any user coming in would be able to see that. This is one of the things that really helps with communication across not only the software, but then within the school organization, so that we can instantly have access to the conversations happening around students rather than waiting for some of those some of that information to be relayed to us. Okay, so a couple more questions here. When an action is set for a staff member during a conversation, is there one email sent to the teacher about what they're responsible, or a possibility to send a follow-up? The answer is yes and yes. So what ends up happening, I'm going to come back out to our home, and we're going to go into our actions overview. Now, because I'm in the program as a school admin, I have the ability to see all the actions established in the school. So I can see that the demo principal has 2 actions outstanding, and teacher has 3 from different meetings that were put in place. And for the user, I can see just the 2 that have been established for me as the demo principal. Now, when a meeting is saved, an email goes out to the individual that says you were just involved in a meeting, and it will list the meeting type with the ability to link to the PDF that we generated. It'll also say the following actions were established, and will list those actions for the person. We are then building in the functionality so that the day prior to an action becoming due, a reminder email is automatically generated by the system back in. So now, as a user, I'm going to show, if I were to log in and note that I have some outstanding user actions, let's watch what happens. So the one that we set today of involve Darth in a peer mentoring program that the demo principal is going to look at, let's say that I've had the chance to establish that. It's completed, and now I'm going to note that Darth will start on Monday, September 14th. Okay, and I save. Again, any of the notes that I have, you can see that that action is no longer outstanding. It's not showing up in our area. Also, if I go to Darth, so I'm going back to my student profiles, searching for Darth, there he is, and I go to his outstanding actions, it's no longer there. There's only one thing outstanding for this student that Mary was responsible for. But now the interesting thing is if I go into my meeting records, back to my Learning Support Team meeting, we're going to show the PDF. It's going to show the action, who was responsible, and now it's been completed with the date and the comment that I've just included. So it automatically updates those print records that are in place for students. Now, if the actions we were putting in place were interventions in our school, it would show the interventions that are currently in place for students. We're still going to try and demonstrate that today here, but I do want to pause again for questions and take a look. Okay, it's looking like I've attended to the ones that are there. All right, so I want to then go in, and the last point that we're going to take a look at today is the interventions. I should note that there are times in the system, especially in student profiles, where not only do we have our dashboard, but our dashboard becomes horizontal above. So I'm actually going to go to home, but you see I could go to interventions through this as well. But let's go into the interventions. Now, in this school, we have established 2 intervention focuses. Again, school admin have the ability to adjust and customize that to fit their school for whatever focus they'd like to be taking. But let's go into behavior, and currently we have no interventions in place. Let's go and add one. So in our school, we have a peer mentoring program. And we can add a description. Students in grade 9 partner with students in lower grades and meet Monday with peer advisor, or let's put meet Monday with peer advisor in attendance. Okay, now that's in our behavior focus. We're going to select which tier. We're going to say that that's a tier 3 intervention in our school. And we're going to add some keywords to this. And I'll show you why the keywords are so important. So we're peer, comma, mentor, comma, grade 9, comma, and let's even use behavior. And save. You can also note that I can include documents or web links that are linked to this intervention here as well. I save, and now you'll see it's noted that it's been saved successfully. I can see this now as a tier 3 intervention within my school. Now, one of the so as a school, we can continue to build up our menu or pyramid of supports and interventions that are in place in our school, and I'll show you how those become accessed during a meeting as well. Teachers and admin have the ability to add these interventions within the school. However, one of the features we've also built in for our schools that are engaged with the Student Information System Sync is an intervention network. So let's say that our school has really exhausted our creativity. We're not sure what other interventions or supports we could be putting in place. We're going to go into the Access Intervention Network, and any intervention network that has, or intervention, sorry, that has been put in place in any school utilizing the system will be listed here. So, in time, this is going to become an expansive list, and you can note that the peer mentoring program we just set up in our school has already been populated into the big network, the bank of supports. So let's actually go and let's search by a keyword of peer and see what comes up. Okay, there's 2 different supports that come in place. Let's maybe take a look at what if we were looking for academic interventions? Oh, this is one area where we're still building that to be able to search by a focus for that. However, we can still search by our keywords, academic, and we can see there's nothing in place right now in our network. So we'll go back to, let's go to counseling. Let's try behavior. We're going to go to counseling with a school social worker. Now, they have built some resources already in place. You can see some fictitious things that have been put in for the purpose of demonstration. But we can read what is in place. So a meeting with Natasha. Now we look at this and determine, hey, this is something that we could bring into our school. We're going to save this. Bring it into our school. Now what you will have in place from that, and it's not functional at this point, is the ability to save and edit so that we can make changes to this, as we don't have a staff member named Natasha. And it can come, we can change our intervention tiers, and what will be in place is that we can add these interventions right into our school. So question here, is that specific to Wolf Creek? No, this is specific to any schools utilizing the system. So Wolf Creek as well as any other schools or districts across the province. Again, the intention is to become a robust network of intervention strategies that can be put in place. So now I'm going to go back into a team meeting. Actually, let's go just into a regular student meeting so that you can see what happens here. And let's go now and talk about John and start a new meeting for John Candy. Let's choose our date. This actually is going to be a parent meeting where we have not only John's teacher Mary, but let's add in that Mr. Candy as well as Mrs. Candy are in attendance. And we're going to put in that, and again, for the purposes of demonstration, we're going quite simplistic. We're going to put in that there's some emotional issues emerging. Now, when we go to our intervention or action, we click here, we can see that in behavior, one of the interventions we have in place is a peer mentoring program. Now, this function is not in place yet, but you'll notice here, one of the things that we are building in is the identification of what tier that particular intervention is in place. So let's get him involved in a peer mentoring or peer mentoring program, and Mary's going to take care of looking after that by, she's going to get that started by next Monday. We're going to save, and we'll see now for John, not only does he have a meeting record, we can see a parent meeting. We'll go take a look where we had Mary as well as Mr. and Mrs. Candy in attendance, and what was going to happen. We also then, and that the peer mentoring program was going to get set up by Mary. When we go and look at John's current interventions, he has involvement in peer mentoring program at Tier 3. Okay? During this conversation, we would more than likely, during that meeting, have changed his behavior into a Tier 3. One of the functions that we are working to build in as well is that the second we involve a student in a Tier 3 intervention, it automatically changes in that area. So you can see in behavior, it automatically will change the level of support that they're receiving to that level. However, that's still one of our to-come features being built in. Okay, I want to address a few more questions here. So one of the questions that we have is, when will teachers have access to the software? I'm going to pull out of our screencast. Here we go. So we are currently ensuring that the student rosters are accurate, and in particularly, I would assume within our Wolf Creek schools that question is coming from. We're ensuring that our student rosters are accurate with the PowerSchool syncs. Today, information went out to school administrators to be able to access their school to begin some of their school configurations. And as we continue to work, we will ensure that from the district level that those accesses are made. However, please note that school administrators are already in and utilizing, working through the system. Greg, I'm going to turn it over to you if there's anything else to add from a particular district perspective.
No, nothing in addition to what you've mentioned there, Curtis, in that I know that Mark has sent out information specifically to all school principals and I believe admin teams, and they have the information that they need to make the decision about whether or not they'll move forward with utilizing the software or demonstrating it, etc., tomorrow with their teams, with their staff in our first collaborative response model day.
I'll unmute there. Okay, excellent. So I would assume because this is being broadcast into a larger audience that that's a specific conversation to go through with our district personnel. Another question, is schools setting up team boards manually or is the information being populated by PowerSchool? Great question, Samuel. So I had mentioned earlier within the system that all the student rosters as well as staff being pulled in from PowerSchool through the sync is all automatically populated. We've been working with technology services to ensure that the student rosters are accurate and that that sync is complete. When it comes to the team boards, those are established specifically at each school level. Every school is going to be different in the context. There may be schools that set up their boards based on grade levels. There may be some that set up their boards based on divisions, some that set up their boards based on their focus of whether this is a literacy focus group, some that'll set up an intervention team focus board. The number of possibilities for a board are endless within the school. However, because of that level of customization, they are not automatically generated. Those are manually prepared at the school level by admin or anyone that's deemed with that admin user permissions. Okay, I'm going to turn us back into the software there. We're looking to end here fairly quickly. I just want to draw attention back as we're back on our school homepage to one of the things that was noted earlier in the webinar, and that is our support network that has been established. When we click into support, you can notice that we have a contact district support. Anything there will go to the district representative, the district support liaison that has been established in the system. They'll receive a note in relation to that when this is established for them. However, to proceed to CRMS support, you'll see that this will bring us up to an area where we are building a knowledge base with video and text support as well as PDFs that explain things such as our school user permissions, district user permissions. We'll continue to populate as we go. As well, any of our webinar support is available. We also have begun a regular email at this point. It's a weekly email that goes out. You can sign up for those email updates utilizing this form. Our intention with this is to send regular updates on functions that are being added to the system, supports that are being added, answers to common questions that are arising, just regular information so that people can stay on top of the supports and what we can do to ensure that the software is utilized in schools, as well as the ability to send feedback. You'll note here the send feedback bar. Any bugs that may arise as we continue to go through as we're onboarding schools and continuing to test the software, we encourage people to provide feedback, and whether that's bugs, glitches that are being encountered, if it's questions on I'd really like some information on how to do this within the system, videos that we could be creating, or any other additional features that as you get in and utilizing the software feel would be effective, we encourage you to utilize this form to send those pieces back. for us here as well. Okay, at this point, it brings us an end to what I was going to focus on specifically within this webinar, but I would like to come back and ask if there are any other questions to be addressed. Anything that's come through with the email there for you, Greg, as well. Anything else that people are wondering at this point? Okay, seeing that there's nothing through email or on our group chat, I will remind you that the webinars are being recorded and that we have future webinars planned. I'm going to then turn it over to Greg to share some of that information and to bring some closure to this webinar. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks, Curtis. Absolutely. So what we will do is watch your email. We will have further opportunities for training, much like Curtis has shared with us today, which will go over things that need some extra reinforcement or introduce us and go over new features of the software that we haven't covered yet in episode 1 and episode 2 of our Google Hangouts on-air training for the collaborative response model software. So that information will come out to everybody, to coaches, to school admin, through your email, and we look forward to continuing our training on this software with Curtis, and we very much appreciate you taking the time to do this with us. It certainly helps us build capacity inside of our division, and we very much appreciate the partnership that we have with you in order to be able to provide this to our people. So thanks to everybody who took time out to join in the Hangout Live, and also I noticed that there are a number of viewers outside of the live audience, so thank you to everybody who took the time out to be a part of this. And just a reminder that please, you can also bump the link for this particular Hangout on to other people via email or other means, so that if they are asking questions about the content that Curtis has gone through, refer them back to the last 2 webinars so that they can look for some of those answers at their own pace whenever is convenient for them. So thanks to everybody. Have a good evening, and we'll talk to you soon.